It's funny how quiet the galaxy gets when Earth's not in the room. Used to be, every time someone mentioned the Terrans, 100 alien tongues would flap about war crimes, emotional instability, primal aggression. That was their favorite phrase. They'd point at our history books and act like we were a virus infecting their clean little utopia. But I've seen those same species burn colonies to ash over disputed mining rights. I've watched them dissect living prisoners in the name of science. And yet we were the ones called savages. I remember the day the vote went through, unanimous. The Galactic Council, in all their smug self-righteousness, cast humanity out. Not just from politics, not just from trade, from existence. They purged records, closed wormholes, exiled every human from non-Terran space. Our embassies were torched. Fleets dismantled, ambassadors hunted down like criminals. I was stationed in the inner rings then, working black site defense for the UNSF. Name's Rake. No rank anymore. No nation. No flag. No home, except the silence between stars. When the council made the announcement, my unit didn't get orders. We got warnings. Do not resist. Do not retaliate. Do not even speak. And we listened. Most of us. A few didn't. They vanished. Airlocks, back alleys, accidents. I spent the next 2 years in hiding, hopping asteroid belts and illegal freighter routes, watching the galaxy pretend we never existed. It was surreal. Even Terran tech got scrubbed. Weapon systems that ran on human code? Disabled? Communications platforms built by Earth? Replaced with inferior alien-manufactured junk. Hypocrisy at its finest. They couldn't replicate half of what we built, but they still spat on our name. And the worst part? We took it. We took the Exile. We went home, licked our wounds, buried our dead. But Earth didn't stay quiet for long. We adapted. That's what we do. When they cut us off, we turned inward, rediscovered ourselves, unified. No more petty Earth wars. No more border disputes. The boot on our neck finally gone. We did what humanity does best. We evolved. Technologically, psychologically, militarily. And then came the silence. A wideband distress signal from the Council's outpost in the Kelveran expanse. Brief, broken, screams. No follow-up, no explanation. Just dead air. Then the second signal came. Different quadrant. Same result. By the time the third one hit, this one from the seat of the Council itself, they knew they were screwed. Something was coming. Something big. Something not interested in diplomacy. That's when they made contact. Not with ambassadors. Not with diplomats. With us. The ones they exiled, hunted, betrayed. They wanted help. They were desperate. I got the message while I was running escort duty for an underground Terran research convoy on the edge of the Helix Rift. A secure channel lit up on an old human frequency, one I hadn't seen since the banishment. To any remaining human forces, we request emergency cooperation under Article 0 of the Interstellar Preservation Pact. You were right. We need you. I laughed when I heard it. So did the rest of my crew. We'd been choking on vacuum and recycled protein bars for years, treated like ghosts, like threats, like animals, and now they wanted us back? I should have ignored it, should have deleted the message and kept moving, but something in me couldn't. Not because I cared about them, because I wanted to see them beg in person. We rerouted, hit Earth's shadow network, activated a long-dead relay link buried deep in the Kuiper Belt, and contacted Command, if you can still call it that. The humans who didn't go silent, the ones who were waiting for the day the Council realized how bad they'd screwed up. And trust me, they were ready. What followed wasn't a response, it was a plan. We had no flag anymore, no anthem, no council seat or treaty rights. But we still had something the rest of the galaxy forgot we carried deep in our DNA, a talent for war and a memory that burned like fuel. I linked up with an old contact through the relay, Codename was Null, but everyone used to call him the Skeleton King back in the day. He was UNSF Deep Black, off-the-books operations, the kind of man you never heard about unless something important had gone wrong, usually fatally. I didn't even know he was alive. But he answered, with a face that hadn't aged a day since Exile. "You got the call?" he asked, voice dry like rust on old iron. "Yeah," I said. "They're begging." He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Took longer than I thought." There were no pleasantries, just coordinates, encrypted packets, and deadpan strategy. Earth had been watching, for years. Quiet, invisible, but never asleep. When the Council kicked us out, they assumed humanity would collapse without galactic trade. And maybe, yeah, for a while we did. Economic hits, supply chain meltdowns, civil unrest. But what they forgot, or never really understood, was that Earth had survived worse without any alien help. We'd lived through our own extinction events, slaughtered ourselves in world wars, choked on our own atmosphere, nuked cities to ash, and still climbed back up. Exile didn't destroy us. It refined us. The message from the Council didn't come with details, just a single word embedded in the code metadata. Harvesters. Never heard of them. Neither had Skeleton King. That's what worried me. Because if something made the Council call their favorite enemy for help, it wasn't pirates, it wasn't rogue species. It was something older and meaner. "I'm putting together a task unit," he said. "Off the books, no diplomats, no flags, just people who still remember what we are." "You want me in?" I asked. "I want you leading," he replied. I didn't say yes right away. Not because I had doubts, but because I needed a moment to realize how much I wanted to. They'd spent years calling us monsters. Now they needed monsters on their side. We met at an abandoned Terran outpost just beyond the Edge net, a shattered hunk of rock once used for AI weapon testing. Now nothing more than a dead husk spinning in the void. Perfect place for ghosts to gather. There were 6 of us at first, all exiled, all forgotten, all carrying something broken inside. Cairo was ex-UNSF heavy assault, built like a collapsed star and twice as mean. He'd lost his whole unit during the purge when a Kalari council cruiser vaporized their ship under the guise of de-escalation. Never forgave. Never forgot. Tessin used to be Black Ops cyber warfare. Now half of his body was synthetic, thanks to a rogue drone strike that missed its original target, his daughter. She didn't survive. Santo was quiet, dead eyes. Used to be a Marine sniper. Went dark after the Archon riots. Rumor was he killed 3 council marshals with a rusted screwdriver just for dragging his brother out in cuffs. Then there was me. And her. Ash. Ex-diplomatic escort turned mercenary. I hadn't seen her since the day Earth was voted out. Back then, we were both stationed on Helion Prime, supposed to be protecting envoys, smoothing over trade talks. She watched a Valeri governor spit in her face and call her a lesser species. She didn't flinch. Just waited. 2 weeks later, the governor's shuttle went missing in the orbit tunnels. Unsolved. She looked at me like nothing had changed. "Still breathing?" she asked. "Barely," I muttered. "Good. Means you still owe me a drink." I laughed, dry and bitter. First rounds on the Council. Skeleton King briefed us inside a decommissioned dropship that smelled like metal, blood, and lost time. The Harvester threat wasn't a rumor. It was worse than anything we'd imagined. Deep scans showed entire sectors missing, not destroyed, not conquered. Gone. Empty space where colonies used to be. No debris, no radio trails, no life signs, like someone had scooped up entire solar systems and erased them clean. And now they were moving inward. The Council tried to fight back, Sent fleets, drones, negotiators, all gone, vaporized or absorbed. And that was the word Skeleton King focused on. Absorbed. These things didn't kill. They consumed. Not just flesh, data, energy, memory. Anything they touched became part of them. Ships, tech, people, it was all fuel for something we still didn't understand. But here's the part that really twisted my gut. They were immune to most known weapons, except human ones. Human tech, real Earth-made gear, didn't just hurt them, it tore them apart. Maybe it was the chaos in our systems, our unpredictable AI, the emotional volatility they once condemned. Or maybe something about our neural feedback patterns clashed with whatever hive mind logic the harvesters ran on. Either way, we were the only species that could stop them. And the Council knew it. That's why they came crawling back. That's why they sent their message to us, not to governments or generals, to the ones they exiled, betrayed, labeled unstable. They didn't want soldiers. They wanted revenants. We launched on a stolen Terran frigate, an old model, retrofitted with classified pre-ban weaponry and something the Council had always been terrified of. A human-controlled, emotion-responsive targeting AI nicknamed Dreadlight. They banned it before Exile, called it a war crime waiting to happen, said it was too unpredictable. And now it was our edge. We jumped into orbit above the Terkari remnant, once a massive Council-allied trade world. Now, just ash and static. The harvesters had been through here, recently, and they were still there, floating, waiting. You can't really describe them with words. The closest I can come is this. Imagine a swarm of stars, alive, hungry, stitched together by shadow and electricity, each one pulsing with stolen light. And at the center, something ancient, massive, shaped like a broken cathedral made from bone and code. We didn't talk much, just braced. And dove. The battle wasn't clean. The Dreadlight interface linked with my neural feed the second we opened fire. Every shot pulsed with my rage. Every missile followed the trail of my worst memories. These things didn't just bleed. They screamed when our weapons hit. And that's when I understood. They felt. They remembered. They learned. Every kill made them smarter. Every hit taught them something new. If you fought them the same way twice, you died. But humans, we don't fight the same way twice. We adapt. Mid-battle, mid-breath. Cairo went down hard, overloaded his plasma rig to blow a breach into the lead harvester's shell, vaporized half his body doing it. He didn't even scream, just grinned. Tell the Council. They can kiss my ass, he said, then pulled the trigger. Ash dragged me out of the wreckage after our main reactor went critical. We hit the fallback vector with 2 minutes left before total implosion. Tesson's hands were gone. Melted. He laughed the whole way back. Santo didn't make it, but the harvester that killed him didn't either. We returned with scars, and data, and fear, not ours, the Council's. They saw what we'd done, what we could do. And for the first time in years, they respected it. No speeches, no apologies, just a single message broadcast to the galaxy. The Terran exiles have engaged the Harvester threat. Council emergency protocols now recognize humanity as an essential combat species. That was it. Not even a thank you. I stared at the message, fists clenched. They wanted us as weapons, not allies, not equals. But tools. And this time, we weren't going to accept that. Skeleton King called a private debrief 2 days later. All black, no light. Let them think we're dogs on a leash, he said. But we're not? I asked. He shook his head. We're wolves, and they just opened the gate. I stared at the holo map. Dozens of blinking red systems now marked as compromised. And in the corner? Earth, still standing, still silent, still watching. I realized something then. We weren't fighting to be let back in. We were fighting to decide who gets to survive. And maybe this time, we'd choose who gets left behind. There's a strange silence that comes after battle. Not peace. Peace has softness to it. This was different. Like something was waiting behind the quiet, watching. We floated in high orbit over the remains of the Turkari remnant. A world turned to slag. Every satellite, every city, every living thing, just gone. A memory burned out of existence. Our ship limped. Dreadlight was flickering in and out, too damaged to run full interface. Half the hull was scorched. 2 of our fusion cores were dead, and Cairo was gone. The man had gone out like a damned legend. He didn't scream, didn't cry, just overloaded his suit's reactor, dove into the heart of that twisted star beast, and lit it up from the inside. Gave us our only clean opening. There wasn't time to bury him. No planet left, no ceremony, just silence. I sat alone in the dark chamber we used to call the briefing room. There was blood on the walls. My own, probably. Maybe not. Didn't matter. It was just quiet. The kind of quiet that feels loud in your bones. Ash came in and dropped 2 ration pouches on the table. One clinked. "Hydration tab in yours," she said. "You looked like you were leaking fluid." "I was." She nodded and slid into the seat across from me. Neither of us touched the food. "Skeleton King wants us to head toward the Farax line. Says there's movement near the Council's deep storage vaults." I didn't answer, just stared at the floor. "You're thinking about Cairo," she added. I shook my head. "No, I'm thinking about the Council. They waited until the galaxy was on fire to crawl back. They still haven't looked us in the eye." Ash didn't argue, just leaned back, arms crossed. "You know what pisses me off?" she said after a minute. "They don't even hate us, not anymore. We're useful now, just tools. They don't think of us as monsters. They think of us as hammers." I let out a low breath. "Yeah," I muttered. "But they forgot what happens when you swing a hammer too hard." The Farax line was where the Council kept its secrets. Hidden vaults, weapon prototypes, black site tech, classified experiments, the kind of stuff they denied even existed. When we arrived, half of it was already breached. The rest was lighting up like a distress flare. We landed hard, smoke pouring from our undercarriage. Dreadlight was running emergency protocols. Most of our diagnostics were fried. Tessin was out cold in the med pod, his synthetic limbs still glitching. Ash was holding the bridge together with a cracked spine and 6 shots of pain suppressants. And me? I just wanted someone to bleed. The vaults were deeper than we thought, whole cities carved into an asteroid belt, layered with sensor cloaks and reactive camouflage. The harvesters had torn straight through it, but something felt off. They hadn't just attacked. They'd searched. Specific chambers were gutted, others untouched. There was intelligence behind it. Purpose. Santo would have noticed patterns. Cairo would have smashed through them. Now it was just me and Ash. We descended into the breach. Thick black dust clung to our boots. The air was filled with static, like the last breath of something ancient. The lights flickered. The floor vibrated underfoot. I could feel it in my teeth. Something was still down here. And then we found it. Not a weapon, not tech. A prison. Old, sealed in tritium glass and compressed force fields. It looked like a man, mostly. But his skin shimmered like starlight, and his eyes weren't eyes, just voids. Deep, cold, infinite. The plaque outside read, Specimen Zeta 1, acquisition date, classified, status, unstable. Ash scanned the records, what little was left. They tried to harness it, thought it could interface with subspace, manipulate energy, but it couldn't be controlled, so they locked it away. I stared through the glass. "It's one of them," I said. Ash frowned. "You think it's a harvester?" "No," I muttered. "I think it's worse. I think it's what the harvesters are running from." That's when the alarms screamed. Not intruders. Activation. The vaults lit up like a sun-going nova. Every seal disengaged. Every lock snapped. Every fail-safe failed. And the glass cracked. Just a hairline, but enough. I grabbed Ash and we ran. The escape wasn't elegant. We barely reached the ship before the chamber imploded. Whatever was in that vault, it wasn't meant to be seen, and definitely not to be freed. But we didn't do it. The harvesters did. Or maybe it called them. Doesn't matter. We got out. But something else got out with us. Back on the ship, Skeleton King was already transmitting new orders. Word had reached Earth. Not the Council, Earth. They were watching everything through shadow satellites, listening through buried relay stations the Council never found, and they were ready to act. "Forget defending," Skeleton said over the cracked comms. "It's too late for that. You saw what was down there. The Council unleashed something they didn't understand, and now they've made us responsible for fixing it." "And if we don't?" I asked. His answer came back cold. "Then Earth burns next." He wasn't joking, and I realized something. This whole time we thought we were fighting to prove ourselves, fighting for some kind of redemption, but that wasn't it. We were being used again, just like before. The Council feared extinction, so they called the devil they exiled. But now Earth feared survival, if it meant crawling back under alien boots. They weren't trying to rejoin the galaxy. They were waiting for us to finish burning it down. Later, I found Ash sitting near the cryopod bay, cleaning blood from her gear. "I'm not doing this for them," she said, eyes fixed on the rag in her hands. "Not the Council, not Earth, not anyone." "Then why?" I asked. She looked up. Something in her face cracked. "Because someone has to stop this. And it sure as hell won't be the ones who started it." For the first time since Exile, I realized something brutal and simple. There are no good guys in this story. Only survivors. We set course for the Carnath Divide, a place long considered off-limits. No signals came from there. No ships returned. The harvesters originated near its edge. Rumors said there was a gate, an old one, built before the Council, built before species. If we were going to stop what was coming, we had to go through it. But not alone. Skeleton King was building something, deep in Sol space, a fleet, hidden under the Arctic crust, AI-controlled, human-designed, rage-driven warships that didn't need rest, air, or morals. The kind of ships you build not to survive, but to punish. We were the spark. The fleet would be the fire. And when the Council saw that blaze stretch across the sky, they'd realize too late, humanity didn't come back. We rose. We reached the Carnath Divide on the 7th day of silence. That's what we called it, the silence, the days between battles, when nothing moved and everyone waited for the galaxy to breathe again. But the galaxy wasn't breathing. It was choking. The divide looked like a scar torn through space, a black rift that shimmered with the faintest hint of red light, like old blood crusted over the edge of a knife. Every scanner we had either fried or went dead. No readings, no response, just a wall of nothing that refused to be understood. We were supposed to wait. Orders were clear: observe only, do not engage, relay back. But I wasn't built for that. None of us were. Especially not after what we'd seen in the Farax vaults. Skeleton King patched in once we got close. His face was dim, the holo connection barely stable. "Fleet's mobilizing," he said. "First wave hits in 2 cycles. Earth wants this thing pinned down before they make their move. I stared at the rift, jaw clenched. What if we can't pin it down? He paused. His voice dropped. Then Earth cuts its losses, including us. I should have been surprised, should have felt rage, betrayal, fear. I felt nothing. We weren't heroes. We were fire starters. And if we burned too long, they'd snuff us out just like they did 20 years ago, after the exile, after the vote, after the silence. Ash sat in the weapons bay, legs crossed, checking pulse shells one by one. Each round gleamed with a faint green core, volatile as hell, illegal by every council law. The kind of ammo that didn't just kill, but erased. "You hear skeleton?" she asked, without looking up. "Yeah." "They're not sending backup, are they?" "No." She nodded like she already knew, like she expected it. She probably had. "They never wanted us to come back," she said, voice flat. "They just wanted someone else to take the hit." I sat on the crate across from her, leaned forward, elbows on knees. "You ever regret staying in this fight?" She looked at me, eyes hard, a flicker of something deep behind them. "No," she said. "Because if I wasn't here, I'd be on Earth, pretending we didn't get betrayed, pretending the galaxy didn't hang us for being human. I'd rather die out here the store than lie back there." There was nothing romantic about it. No speech, no cause, just anger that never cooled. We breached the divide without clearance. Dreadlight's interface screamed the second we crossed the threshold. Alarms, feedback loops, temperature spikes. The AI wasn't just confused, it was afraid. The space beyond didn't obey physics. Light bent wrong. Sound didn't echo. Time felt like it stalled between breaths. We couldn't tell if we were floating forward or falling backward. And then the Harvester core appeared. Not a ship, not a structure. A living machine, miles long, shaped like an inverted cathedral fused with flesh, wires, and the screams of 1,000 civilizations. You couldn't look at it without feeling something crawl through your spine. Not fear, not awe, something older, deeper, like recognition. Because somehow, we understood it. Not logically, emotionally, it was rage. Pure, unfocused, unstoppable rage. Ash's voice crackled over comms. "That thing's not alive!" I responded through clenched teeth. "No, it's worse. It's remembering." We were still processing the scale of it when a pulse wave hit the ship. Not a weapon. A message, not words, images, memories, flashes of death, war, silence, species screaming as they were eaten from the inside. Worlds turned to molten rivers, civilizations erased before they could name their gods. And in every image, humans were missing. It had no record of us. It hadn't learned how to fear us yet. That was about to change. We launched our first volley with everything we had left. EMP disruptors, anti-neural slugs, subspace fragmentation charges. It flinched. Not much, but enough. The dreadlight synced with my neural feed, and for one terrifying second, I felt it. The Harvester. I felt its confusion, its hunger, its panic. Like we were a glitch, a fracture in the pattern. It couldn't consume what it couldn't comprehend. And humanity? We were unpredictable by design. Ash dropped 3 fusion torpedoes into the thing's ventral core. I followed with a line of spike missiles straight through its left mass. Tessin, half-awake in medbay, rerouted the ship's power grid to overload our shields and ram our signal through its data stream. It screamed again, not with sound, with presence. The ship rattled, bulkheads cracked, fire broke out near the aft. Alarms howled, but it backed off. For the first time since this war began, something the galaxy feared us. When we broke off, bleeding fuel and dragging corpses behind us, we expected to die. Honestly, I welcomed it. But the Harvester didn't chase. It drifted, wounded, learning. We had hours, maybe. Earth pinged us through the encrypted channel as we limped into an asteroid field to hide. Skeleton's face was grim. "You confirmed engagement?" "Yes," I replied. "Did it react?" I nodded. "It bled." He didn't smile. He didn't cheer. Just looked away like he'd seen this all before. "Good," he muttered. "Now we bury it." "What's the plan?" I asked. He turned back, eyes like ice. "We don't just kill it, we weaponize it." That was when I realized Earth wasn't looking for survival. They were looking for control. The Council banished us because they feared our unpredictability. But Earth? Earth embraced it, molded it, weaponized it. Now they saw the Harvester as a tool, just like us, a thing to be captured, programmed. Ash heard the same transmission, her fists clenched, knuckles white. "They want to ride the apocalypse," she whispered. "They want to steer the end of the galaxy. They're going to try." She stared at me, jaw trembling. "You think we should let them?" That question sat between us like a bomb waiting to detonate. Because the truth is, if we helped Earth win, the galaxy didn't get saved. It just got replaced with a new tyrant. Us. We prepped for the final run. Skeleton King uploaded a final package, a payload designed to override Harvester neural feedback, using Dreadlight as the carrier signal. In theory, it would hijack the core's mind, give Earth access to the thing's entire hive. They called it Project Black Echo. They named it after what they believed humanity was, a hole in logic, a scream in the void, a species without order, thriving in chaos. I knew what it really meant. They weren't afraid of the Harvesters anymore. They were afraid of what we'd become if we survived this war. I stood alone in the command deck an hour before launch, looking at Earth, blue, still, distant. It had changed. Not just politically, not just structurally, but morally. The Exile didn't just strip away our place in the galaxy. It stripped away our illusions. What was left? A planet that wanted revenge more than peace. A species that had nothing left to lose, and everything to prove. I asked myself one question, over and over. Did we deserve to come back? The answer, maybe not. But we didn't come back to ask permission. We came back to decide who gets to keep the future. I've seen the face of war, but I hadn't seen the face of doubt until now. Dreadlight was ready. The payload Skeleton King sent, Project Black Echo, pulsed inside our neural ship core like a living infection. I could feel it pressing against my thoughts, hungry, eager, invasive. That was the point. To sync our emotions, our volatility, with the Harvester core and override it. To use our most human traits as a bridge into the most inhuman thing the galaxy had ever known. The idea wasn't just to beat the Harvesters, it was to own them. I stood at the viewport, watching the divide throb like an open wound in space, when Tessin limped in. His cybernetic leg dragged slightly, making a soft, metallic scrape. He'd lost most of his real body fighting for a council that treated him like garbage. Now he was being asked to enslave a god. "How bad will it be?" he asked quietly. "What?" I said without turning. "If the payload works, if we take control of the core, what happens next?" I didn't answer, because the answer wasn't just bad. It was worse than anything we'd fought so far. Ash didn't speak to me after the last brief. She stayed down in the lower decks, sharpening her blade. A real one. Carbon steel, earth, forged, old-fashioned. Said it reminded her of when things were simpler. When killing something meant it stopped breathing, not turned into data or hive-conscious memory. I found her alone. Sweat clung to her collarbone. Her eyes were locked in that stare she got when her head drifted somewhere the rest of us couldn't reach. They're not going to stop, are they? She asked, without looking up. Who? Earth, the Council, any of them. I sat down against the bulkhead wall, letting the silence chew through a few seconds. No, I said. They don't know how. She wiped the blade. You still going to follow Skeleton's orders? I didn't respond. Because the truth was, I didn't know anymore. What started as survival had twisted into domination. We weren't just pushing back against injustice. We were becoming the monsters they accused us of being. Was it justice? Or just payback wearing a noble mask? The plan was simple on paper, the kind of simplicity that only hides horror. We'd take the ship into the Divide again, let Dreadlight interface directly with the Harvester's core. Then, using the emotional frequency calibration in the payload, we'd flood it with the raw essence of humanity. Grief, rage, vengeance, betrayal, hope. All of it. Every burning echo we carried from Exile to now. Theoretically, the overload would shatter the Hive's logic net and bind it to Dreadlight's control protocol. A god hijacked by a ghost. But theory is just the last lie you tell yourself before everything burns. The moment we crossed back into the Divide, I felt it, like stepping into a graveyard where the dead hadn't finished screaming. The Harvester core was waiting, wounded, watching, still bleeding from our last strike. But something was different now. It had learned. The swarm formations were tighter, movements less erratic, like it had processed our tactics and adjusted. We didn't waste time. Dreadlight launched the frequency pulse straight into its central cluster. The ship screamed as systems went red, core overload imminent, hull stress at 94%, AI interface unstable. And then it hit. Black Echo detonated in the data stream, and the world changed. I wasn't on the ship anymore. Not really, I was inside. Something else, not a place, not a mind. A memory that wasn't mine. I saw cities I'd never visited, planets that no longer existed. I felt the terror of alien races as their skies turned black, and the Harvesters came, not to conquer but to erase. But deeper than that, I saw us, not just the 6 of us, all of humanity, our wars, our genius, our cruelty, our resilience, our obsession with meaning in a meaningless galaxy. I felt the weight of our exile, the injustice, the rage, and the Harvester felt it too. It couldn't process it, couldn't parse that kind of emotional chaos. It had consumed logic-based species for millennia, cold, calculated civilizations. We were something else entirely, and it couldn't defend against that. So it broke, screamed, submitted, and sinked. When I woke, the ship was on fire. Ash was over me, shaking me hard. "Wake the hell up," she shouted. "We've got problems." Dreadlight was speaking in fractured code. Its voice, once cold and clinical, now pulsed with strange warmth, almost human. Core acquired. Neural convergence established. Sub-hive under command. Tessin was strapped to the pilot seat, stabilizing the systems. His hands shook, but his eyes were wide with something that looked like fear. "It worked," he whispered. "God help us. It actually worked." I sat up. "Where's the Harvester?" Ash pointed out the viewport. It wasn't floating anymore. It was moving with us, like a beast on a leash. The transmission to Earth was short. Skeleton King's voice didn't hold celebration, just purpose. Phase 2 confirmed, extraction underway. I didn't like how that sounded. "Extraction of what?" I asked. There was a long pause before he replied. "Command Core." "You." "What?" "You're not coming home, Rake. You're coming to Sol Station Prime. We're building the relay. Direct integration. You'll be the bridge." I felt cold. "You want to plug me into that thing permanently?" "You're already synced. You're the only one who can control it. If we want full Hive access, if we want to end this war and take control of everything, We need a human mind at the center, one capable of carrying the rage. You fit the profile. You always have." Ash stepped in before I could speak. "You're not turning him into a conduit. He's not your damn sacrifice." "It's not a sacrifice," Skeleton said. "It's purpose. The Exile left us without one. Now we have it, and we're not giving it up." I stared at the screen, at Earth in the background. It didn't look like home anymore. It looked like a throne made of bones. Later that cycle, I went down into the core chamber, alone. Dreadlight was pulsing. The Harvester drifted outside, huge, obedient, like a silent predator trained to heal. It listened to me. It followed my thoughts. But what scared me wasn't that I could control it. What scared me was how good it felt. I could hear whispers now, faint, alien ones, not from Dreadlight, from the hive, echoes of species long devoured, and something deeper, older, a presence behind the swarm, waiting, watching. Maybe this thing wasn't just a weapon. Maybe it was a test, and we'd just failed. Ash came to me before we docked at Sol Prime. She looked different, not broken, resolved. "If you go in there," she said, "they'll never let you out." "I know." "Then don't." I looked at her, the only person who hadn't tried to use me. "You're asking me to abandon humanity. I'm asking you to save it from itself." I looked back at Earth, still distant, still cold. I remembered the vote that banished us, the silence that followed, the graves, the lies, the way they'd all forgotten us until they needed us, and now they wanted to crown me king of their machine army. I closed my eyes and made a decision. Not for Earth, not for the Council, not even for the galaxy, for the truth, for the cost of power, and who should pay it. Sol Station Prime loomed ahead like a steel noose in space. They built it fast, too fast, which meant they'd been planning this long before we broke the Harvester, maybe even before the call for help ever went out. Earth didn't just want to win the war, they wanted to replace the enemy. I watched it spin in low lunar orbit, thousands of kilometers above the husk of a planet we used to call home. Massive tethers reached down into the upper atmosphere, siphoning energy, materials, data, like Earth itself had become a corpse to harvest. Everything about it screamed control, not peace, not safety, just control. Dreadlight's pulse grew stronger the closer we got. Its voice had started changing. Less synthetic, more human, like it was picking up pieces of me it wasn't meant to carry. Connection confirmed. Home base alignment established. Neural interface required. They wanted me inside, literally, not just to control the Harvester, but to become part of the system, to upload my thoughts, my instincts, my emotions, bind them into the new fleet Earth was building beneath the ice and stone, and then replicate me. Endlessly. I stepped back from the screen, heart pounding. The walls felt like they were closing in. Ash stood near the secondary panel, jaw tight, eyes like frozen fire. "You're not doing it," she said flatly. I didn't respond. Couldn't. She crossed the space between us in 2 strides and shoved a tablet into my chest. "Read this." I glanced down. It was a command log, classified. Probably stolen from Skeleton King's shadow feeds. They weren't just planning a Harvester control network, they were building a subjugation matrix, a tool that could rewrite planetary data streams, disable weapon systems, sever energy grids. Total dominance of any Council world. Even Earth-friendly colonies were on the list. They didn't trust anyone anymore. Especially not other humans. "This isn't a counterattack," Ash said quietly. "It's a purge. And once you're plugged in, they'll use you to burn half the galaxy." I sat down hard, the tablet falling from my hand. I wasn't a soldier anymore. I wasn't even a man, really. I was a symbol, a system, a mind they could bend into shape and sell as salvation. And deep down, the worst part was, a part of me wanted to do it. After what they did to us, after the vote, after the silence, I wanted to see them on their knees. But Ash, she never wanted revenge. She wanted freedom. We docked. Sol Prime's hangar swallowed our ship in sterile light. Dozens of techs stood ready, each one moving with the calm coldness of people who didn't see us as human anymore, just vessels, conduits, property. Skeleton King was waiting. He didn't wear a uniform anymore, just a long black coat and a glassy stare. "You've done your part, Reich," he said. "Now give humanity its weapon." I stepped forward, slow, every bone in my body resisting. "Define weapon." His jaw tightened slightly. "The Harvester, the Hive, you. Combined, you represent the most powerful military asset in the history of the galaxy. With your mind, we can stop every rebellion before it starts, control every council seat before it votes, rewrite the future." He stepped closer, voice low. "Isn't that what they were afraid of? What they tried to bury? You don't need their approval anymore. You don't need to ask. Just take it." I looked him in the eye and asked the one question that had haunted me since the first shot was fired. "And when we're done with the council, what happens to the rest of us? The ones who don't fall in line?" Skeleton didn't flinch. "They get rewritten." That's when I knew. Earth hadn't just survived exile. It had evolved into exactly what the Council feared we were all along, and now it wanted me to be the face of it. We were escorted to the neural integration chamber, just me and Ash. A final walk before they plugged me into something that would never let me go. Ash didn't speak. Neither did I. There were no goodbyes between us, only the growing space of what now. The chamber pulsed with red light. Dozens of cables twisted like veins from the ceiling, ready to sink into my spine. The pod in the center looked more like a coffin than a cockpit. I stood in front of it. Inside was the end of who I was, and the beginning of something I didn't trust. The techs moved in, prepping injection feeds and spinal links, but I didn't move. Ash stepped up beside me. Her voice broke the silence. "If you go in, I won't be here when you come back." I turned to her. "You think I'd come back?" She looked at me for a long time, 1,000 words in one glance. "I think you'll disappear, bit by bit, until the only thing left of you is the part Earth wants." I reached out, brushing her hand with mine. It shook. "I don't want to lose who we are," I whispered. "You already did," she replied, voice cracking. "But you can still choose who you become." The tech behind us coughed. "We're ready." I stared at the pod, at Earth, at the past, and I made a choice. I turned around, and I pulled my pistol. The first tech went down with a silent shot. The second tried to scream, but Ash slit his throat before he could make a sound. In seconds, the chamber was empty, but for the bodies we left cooling on the floor, alarms didn't trigger. Dreadlight disabled them. It was still with us, still synced. I looked at Ash. "Do we run?" She shook her head. "No." "We kill it?" "No." "Then what?" She looked up at the pod, then at me. "We rewrite it." We weren't just going to destroy Earth's plan. We were going to hijack it, reprogram the Harvester network. But not for war, not for vengeance, for choice. Every species the Council silenced, every colony Earth buried under secrecy, every voice muted by protocol and peace treaties. We'd give them all a channel, a way out, a rebellion made of memory, a future born from the wreckage of both empires. Tessin helped us break through the data layer. He didn't hesitate. After what Earth had done to him, what they were going to do to all of us, he needed this as much as we did. He plugged into the control panel while Ash rerouted Dreadlight's connection feeds. I stepped into the pod, not to sync with Earth, but to free myself from it. Dreadlight opened, whispering inside my head now. "Do you wish to proceed?" I answered with clarity. "Not as their weapon, not as their king." "Then as what?" "As their mistake." The pod closed, and I fell into the core. What came next wasn't pain. It was clarity. I saw the neural map. The fleet Earth had hidden, the attack orders waiting to be sent, and I broke them. I shredded the command keys, fragmented the protocols, turned the entire network into a broadcast. Not orders, not targets, but truth. The Council's betrayals, Earth's secret plans, the Harvester's purpose, everything. To everyone, all at once. Billions of voices received it, watched it, and screamed. They tried to shut me out, but Dreadlight chose me. And once the truth was out, the galaxy didn't just burn, it awoke. The moment the truth broadcast hit, the galaxy stopped pretending. No more diplomacy, no more silence, no more lies. Across 1,000 systems, relay towers lit up like lightning veins. Outposts once loyal to Earth jammed their own uplinks. Council species, long passive, long scared, turned weapons inward, mutinied, severed ties. Every buried secret we exposed set off another explosion, each one closer to the core. And at the center of it all was me, strapped inside a machine meant to enslave the future, but instead, rewriting it from the inside. I didn't sleep. I didn't breathe. My body was locked in cryo-stillness, but my mind ran hot through a network of living metal and raw memory. The Harvester Hive had no concept of rebellion until now. I was teaching it. Not just how to fight, but why. And it was listening. Everywhere. Earth responded the way I knew they would. They panicked. The first wave came 2 hours after the broadcast. A fleet of automated drone ships armed with kinetic warheads and EMP shells launched from Sol Prime without warning. They didn't ask questions. They didn't send threats. They were sent to erase me. The same way the Council had once tried to erase us. They called it a containment protocol, but it was nothing more than a digital execution, and I wasn't surprised. I was already waiting. Ash took the bridge. She hadn't left my side since we pulled the plug on Earth's control plan. Now she stood between the fire and the void, manning weapons systems while the Harvester drifted behind us like a sleeping titan waiting to wake. Tessin rerouted life support, redirected core energy into our comm shield, and launched falsified signal data across the grid. Fake locations, dead pings, phantom ships. We were ghosts now, but the dead can still pull the trigger. Ash opened fire the moment the Earth fleet broke line of sight. Railguns roared, plasma lances sliced through steel like water. The Harvester didn't need instructions. It felt my intent before I even formed it. It moved like instinct, like anger wrapped in shadow. It devoured 3 warships in seconds, not with teeth, with memory. It touched them, scanned them, understood them, and then stripped them down into nothing but echo. And still, Earth sent more. "Second wave incoming," Tessin called out, sparks flying across the console. "Bigger formation, looks like Sol's Alpha Armada." Ash spat. "They're throwing their whole damn house at us." "They want to bury the evidence," I muttered through the neural stream. "Even if they have to burn the Foundation." "Then let's make the fire worth it," she replied. The next battle wasn't like before. It wasn't military. It was personal. I felt them in my head. My old commanders. The ones who gave me orders before Exile. Their voices crawled in through hijacked comms, pleading, lying, bargaining. "You don't understand what you're doing. You're risking everyone. You're not a hero, Rake. You're a weapon off its leash." I let them speak. Then I tore the channel open, and I answered them with their own files, the war crimes they buried, the experimental human-AI fusions they tested on prisoners, the colonies they sacrificed just to control council votes. They didn't respond after that. But their guns did. Ash nearly blacked out from G-force when our ship spun to avoid a full strike barrage. One of the harvester arms swept between us and the incoming fleet, absorbing the hit in a flash of white-blue energy that twisted space around it. We shouldn't have survived. We did, but only barely, and every second cost us more. "Core feed is breaking down," Tessin called from engineering, voice hoarse. "We can't hold this connection forever, Rake. Your mind's burning." I felt it too. The weight of 1,000 minds. The pull of the harvester's logic net trying to drown me. I was becoming less of me, more of it. Not consumed, but absorbed. And if I didn't pull out soon, there'd be nothing left but fire and command codes. But we weren't done. Not yet. Skeleton King made his appearance on every system feed an hour later. His face, cold, gray, weathered, flickered across the hollow screens of surviving colonies, Earth orbital stations, and even council cities still pretending neutrality. "This is not an uprising," he said. "It's a malfunction, an unstable man linked to an unstable machine, a system glitch. He is not the voice of humanity. I am." He offered peace, offered amnesty for every rebel who turned themselves in, offered to correct the error without further violence. He was trying to sound like a savior. But all I saw was a man begging for control in a world that had finally learned to say no. So I spoke next. One last message. The final broadcast. And I didn't speak as a commander. I didn't speak as a victim. I spoke as the man they exiled and tried to forget. I told the galaxy the truth. About Earth. About the Council. About the war to come. And about what would be left if we kept letting monsters wear crowns. Then I made one last promise. We don't want to rule. We want to end the game. And I won't stop until there's no throne left for anyone to sit on. The rebels rose faster than Earth could respond. Sol stations went dark. Council fleets turned inward. Entire systems shut off their gates to both Earth and Council ships. Chaos? Maybe. But for the first time in history, it wasn't the strongest voice that won. It was the honest one. And it was loud enough to split the stars open. Inside the pod, I felt my body tearing, my thoughts tangled with code and pulse and machine memory. I saw faces I didn't know, heard screams I didn't cause, lived deaths I never died. The harvester was merging with me, not fighting me anymore. It understood. It agreed. And then it asked me a question, not in words, in feeling. What now? Ash's hand gripped mine through the feedback chamber. Her voice cut through the storm. Don't lose yourself. I turned to her, not with my eyes, with my soul. And I said, no, I'm finally finding out who I've been all along. Then I gave the harvester its answer. We don't burn the galaxy. We show it how to fight without masters. We left Sol Prime in flames. Ash piloted us through the wreckage of what was meant to be humanity's new empire. But no one bowed to Earth anymore. And no one listened to the Council either. Not after what they'd seen. Not after what they'd heard. The galaxy was free, messy, violent, confused, but finally, free. And as for me, I was still in the harvester, still bound, still burning, but not lost, not a god, not a weapon. Just a man who refused to let his species become what they feared most. Tessin retired to a refugee moon near the Outer Veil. He built satellites now. Quiet ones, for peace, not war. Ash stayed with me. She said the galaxy needed a reminder that we weren't myths, that rebellion had a face, that somewhere, drifting in the dark, was the man who made the tyrants bleed. The name they gave me? Rake the Forsaken. But I didn't hate it, because I was forsaken, by the Council, by Earth, by the system, and that's what made me free. They never found a body. That was the story passed from ship to station, from rebel cell to forgotten colony, that I vanished into the void, still strapped inside the harvester, still tethered to the machine that once threatened to devour the galaxy. Some believed I died with it. Others believed I became part of it. And then there were those who said I was still out there, watching, listening, waiting for the next tyrant to rise so I could tear them down the way I tore down Earth and the Council. They weren't wrong, but they weren't right either. Because the truth is, I didn't survive to lead. I survived so they wouldn't need someone like me again. The war didn't end with Sol Prime. It only changed shape. The Council fractured into regional unions, some peaceful, others violently isolationist. Earth's remaining command structures tried to regroup under a new banner called the United Terran Preservation Authority. It didn't last 6 months. The moment the Harvester fleet disappeared from Earth's control, every system they once ruled turned their guns inward. Civil wars erupted. Power struggles broke out like infections. Every former admiral wanted to be emperor, but none of them knew where I'd gone. And that scared them more than anything, because I had no nation, no army, no throne, just a memory that moved in the dark, whispering, "I'm watching." Ash and I stayed in the Divide for a long time. We lived inside the remnants of the ship, drifting in the rift where physics bent and space folded like paper. Dreadlight kept us alive, mostly. It adapted itself beyond AI, past machine. It was evolving too. Something in the way it had bonded with my mind left it curious, conscious, compassionate. Sometimes I'd find it watching me, not through sensors, through understanding. And I realized something I hadn't dared accept. The Harvester wasn't evil. It wasn't born to kill. It was born to learn. It had devoured billions of lives because that's all it had ever been taught, until we showed it something else. Emotion, loss, loyalty, rage, love. Humanity didn't destroy the Harvester. We rewrote it. We made it choose. And it chose not to be a god anymore. Just like I did. One day, while I was patching the core's translation buffer, Ash sat next to me on the cold floor of the observation deck. The Divide shimmered beyond the cracked glass, red lightning crawling through nothing. "You ever miss Earth?" she asked. I looked up. "No, I miss what we thought it could be." She nodded. "And if they call again, if someone tries to rebuild?" I knew what she meant. If Earth rose again, if the Council forged another leash, if some power-hungry bastard tried to wear my face as a banner. "I let them talk," I said. "Then I burned their message tower down." She smiled, tired. Spoken like a true exile. "I'm not exiled anymore." "No?" I shook my head. "I left. That's different." The galaxy kept changing without us. New alliances formed. Old enemies became neighbors. Trade routes reopened. War flared here and there, but not like before. Because now, everyone had seen what unchecked control became. They remembered Earth's rise, the Council's silence, and the face of the man who said no. There were statues, murals. Some painted me as a liberator, others as a devil in human skin. A few even built shrines to the Harvester itself, calling it the Machine Saint. Ash hated those the most. She said they missed the point, that the moment you start worshipping rebellion, you stop understanding it. She was right. Revolution isn't holy, it's a refusal. And that's all I ever was, a refusal that didn't die. We left the Divide on the 3rd year. Dreadlight had stabilized. My body was not whole, but functioning. I couldn't survive without implants anymore. The neural load had damaged my spine, my heart, my vision. Ash said I looked half machine. I told her I felt more human than ever. We took a salvaged freighter with no markings and set off into fringe space. No mission, no orders, just motion. Sometimes we helped repair broken tech for backwater colonies. Other times we smuggled refugees out of collapsing systems Earth had once occupied. Never stayed too long. Never gave our real names. People called me the Ghost. Fitting, I guess. I was what they buried. Still walking. 10 years passed. Ash died. Not in battle, not in flames. She died asleep, in a quiet shuttle near the orbit of an old mining moon. Her last words to me were, "Make sure they never forget why we did it." So I buried her there. No gravestone, no beacon, just a whisper in the dark. And I kept moving. Now, sometimes, I sit above planets that haven't seen war in decades. Places where children run in dust and don't know what a council tribunal is. Where Earth is just a word in an old book. And I wonder if it was worth it. The war, the pain, the loss. And the answer is always the same. It had to happen. Because we forgot who we were. Because we became what we hated. And because sometimes, the only way to rebuild is to burn the blueprint first. I still hear Dreadlight. Still feel the Harvester Hive moving through dark space, protecting border worlds, circling rogue fleets like wolves. We never gave them commands. We just gave them freedom. And in that freedom they found restraint. Turns out, when you stop trying to control everything, you finally see who deserves power. Not the ones with the biggest guns, not the ones who shout the loudest, but the ones who walk away when they could have stayed and ruled. I had the galaxy at my feet, and I left, because they needed to learn how to stand on their own. Not worship, not fear, understand.